Gotcha.
Hey, how's it going everybody? It's Thegameconomist, and today we'll be talking about the Millwood Greatbow for Duels. So I'm pretty late to the game. I know there's been other uploaders, I know there's been other PvPers that enjoy this weapon, and I've always watched them and wondered like, how the heck do they do that, right? And finally, I've used it for an extended period of time, so I thought it was time to take it into the arena and give it a shot. Basically, if you've never used a Greatbow before, they have a very long wind-up and you're not allowed to strafe at all while you're winding up. And then you can lock onto your opponent and it tracks. Also, you can stay unlocked, and what you can do is you can lock on at the last second and that'll track, right? So there's a, either way, you have to stand perfectly still. One of the things I did discover about it is during the wind-up, there's a brief period where you're pulling the arrow out and putting it into the bow, and you're actually not allowed to roll during that period. It only lasts a brief moment, and then at the end of it, you are allowed to roll. So you have to consider that. When your opponent is in very close range to you, you don't want to get caught in an animation that you can't get out of, okay, because you're going to get punished. And that's kind of the big weakness to the Greatbow. The windup is so long that any weapon that has a good running attack is going to be able to cancel your windup, because you're going to have to roll out of it rather than release the arrow. The other weakness, of course, is after you've launched the arrow, there's this period of time where you're in your recovery frames and your opponent is totally able to roll or run right behind you and backstab you. It's not even that hard, actually. So you have to be very confident that the arrow is going to land, which leads us to the next point. I find that if your opponent is running in very close range and you release the arrow, a little more than half of the time the arrow actually tags them for some reason. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. It might have to do with the particular range that they have to be in. Maybe they have to be really, really close, I'm not sure. But so what I would try to do, if I was you, is stay on them while they're trying to run behind you, and be wary, because if they run a tight circle, they can get a backstab on you whether you release the arrow or not. But keep your eye on them, track them as they're running around you, and when it looks like they're going to attack, then release the arrow. The one really good thing about the Greatbow and the Millwood Greatbow is when you release that arrow, it comes out very fast. Okay, so if you can get the wind up and you're holding the arrow, it is you're at a point where you're now dangerous to your opponent. The best thing they could probably do is have the Black Knight shield out, be guarding, and try to backstab fish. But if you release the arrow and it does hit them, it will knock them back. They'll be stunned. Not necessarily doing damage unless you were in the weapon art. See the weapon art version of the drawback? That'll deal a little bit of pierce damage, but not a very large amount. Nothing to be really worried about. It's just the fact that while they're blocking, they'll be knocked back, so they won't be able to attack you as long as you landed the arrow, which that's what I'm going to be saying this whole time. You've got to land the arrow. The other thing is, when your opponent's kind of further away from you and running around, you can of course try to get a shot then, but you have to be very good at managing your stamina. I find that shooting even one arrow uses over half of your stamina, so always give yourself a little bit of time to get your stamina back, because you never want to be in a situation where you've fired another arrow and you're totally out of stam and they're in close range. You're going to get punished really hard, you're going to get punished really fast. It's not going to be a good time. That being said, if you do land your arrows and you have the Leo ring on and you have your build appropriate, right, 66 strength, not very complicated at all. If all those things are true and you're actually landing your shots, it's not too bad. It does about 600 damage on a counter hit, and then somewhere between the high 400s to the low 500s if it's not a counter hit. So decent amount of damage. You can even get a headshot and a counter attack in at the same time. And for me, I did that just one time to deal about 1,000 damage. It was a lot of damage. Finally, I have a set of backup utility weapons to help me out when the opponent is really pressuring me or I need to finish them off. I have the heavy man-serpent hatchet, which by the way, that allows you to chip through shields. I have the S-stock, which is great for chasing opponents down. And I have the longsword, which is basically all you have to counter quickstep, which by the way, if anyone uses quickstep on you, your Greatbow is instantly countered. So you can see how it's not really viable in duels. It's just something you can do for fun in the random arena, and it is a lot of fun. One more thing I want to add, you can actually use firebombs with this weapon. To some extent is kind of effective because your opponent sees that you have a bow out and they think to themselves, I need to rush him down. And that's what they end up doing, and they run right into a firebomb. So you can actually also use your firebomb without having to swap weapons, is the other reason why they're useful. So firebombs were helping me out quite a bit. Strangely, I don't really have anything else to say about this weapon. I think that it gets about a D tier ranking. I could probably talk about the mechanics a little bit. I feel like I should mention you can shoot the weapon art arrow into the ground at your feet, and that's not very effective either because your opponent always gets plenty of time to react to that. But usually when it does land, it's because they're attacking you, which means all you've really done is traded with them, and if they're using a decent weapon, it's not even that good of a trade. So, and it's countered too hard as well by weapons that can quickstep, or somebody that manages to dodge the arrow and just go right for a backstab. It's almost like it's too much luck involved with actually killing your opponent for it to be considered a reasonable weapon. So it's going to go right into D tier. I would put it into E or F tier, but I just the fact that it deals 600 damage on a counter hit makes it not too bad. Also, the speed that the arrow comes out is really good. You know, if you actually get it wound up before your opponent can pressure you, you know, for example, against ultra weapons, I thought it actually did pretty good against some of the ultra weapons. The ultra weapons, they have their attacks are slower, right? So you're able to release the trigger before their move even lands, and then you're dealing counter damage. It's like 600 and they get knocked backwards. So it actually didn't perform that bad against some of the ultra weapons, but against an actual competent duelist who knows how to counter you and they're using a pretty good weapon, it's not going to do that well. So D tier it is. I want to thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.
Oh my gosh, you guys! I just want to thank y'all so much!